everybody. So I've had a lot of comments on my old tortoise video recently, and people have been asking a lot of questions. And when I first made that video, I wasn't really equipped to answer all those questions, but now I've had Boris about tortoises. But now I've had Boris for about 4 years, so I do feel like I am a little bit more knowledgeable, that I've learned a lot more, and that I can actually answer some of them. So I'm gonna flip the camera around and I'm gonna tell you, give you just a little update on Boris and what's going on in our lives and how everything's going. And it's going really well. So here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna go through everything in the enclosure, what I've changed, and over the past couple years, since it's been a couple years since I've updated this. So Boris is back here. Tortoises are biurnal, just like humans, so they are awake in the day and they're asleep at night, and it's currently it's midnight. So he's asleep. I just have this light on really low because it looks a little better. You might hear my boyfriend in the background since he's playing Arma and he's really loud. He's just a really loud person. So you might hear him, so sorry about that in advance. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about things that I've changed in the past couple years since the last time I made the video. So we're going to start kind of at the back of the enclosure here. Boris is back there. He's doing great, better than ever. I had COVID. I was vaccinated, but I still got COVID. Yeah, I don't know. I'm saying this because my substrate is really dry and looks horrible, but I wanted to replace it 2-3 weeks ago, and then I got sick, so I just haven't gotten around to it yet. That's why it looks so bad, but I will be replacing it very shortly, so don't worry about that. I do replace it quite regularly, but yes, anyway, ignoring that, things are going very well in here. Starting with humidity. Let's start with humidity. I don't really monitor it that much. It usually hovers around 40-ish, which is okay, I think, but mostly I look at his poop, look at his droppings, and especially because I let him walk around the house a lot, I do get to see a lot of them. It's really easy to clean up as well, so don't worry about your tortoise pooping on your floor, because it's usually really easy to clean up. I monitor that. I give him weekly baths, at least once a week, and make sure that he's nice and hydrated. I make sure that I am looking at him often and making sure he doesn't have shell rot. I take him to the vet every 6 months, which I find is really good. And also it's pretty inexpensive to take your tortoise to the vet. I have a really good vet. She's got great reviews. She does really well with tortoises, and you just got to find someone who's good with that. And she's actually helped me out a lot. We'll get to that in a second. Here's his food. I have broccoli stem in there with a couple little broccoli leaves. These are cuttlebone, and you might know from previous videos I've made that I'm vegan. I've been vegan for 7 years, and so I was very hesitant. It wasn't until only a couple months ago that I started using cuttlebone, and I was really adamant against it because I also host a cephalopod podcast. So I'm really passionate about cephalopods. So I didn't want to use murdered cuttlebone parts, to help trim my tortoise's beak. And that's what they're for. They bite down on them and trim their beak. But these are scavenged from Portugal. Some random guy on Etsy scavenged them from a beach in Portugal, and so I have this huge huge stockpile of them down here for him. He doesn't really like them. He didn't grow up eating them, but I'm trying slowly to get him used to the taste of them because it's impossible to trim his beak. I trim his nails manually, just with regular nail clippers, and it takes 5 seconds, but his beak is impossible because he just pulls his head in. So in other videos, I've mentioned that his favorite food is sweet potato and carrot. That hasn't changed, but I have been actively trying to make sure that I am not feeding him that. I haven't fed him carrot or sweet potato in like 2 months now because I've been trying to make sure that he is eating a healthier and more balanced diet. So if I'm feeding him something like sweet, I'm feeding him peas, or I'm feeding him green beans, or I'm feeding him broccoli, because broccoli is pretty sweet. But when I adopted him, he was very much neglected by his family, and he was only fed kale. He was literally only fed kale for like the first 3 years of his life. I was really saddened by that, and it's also not good, you know? They need a diverse diet. So I overcompensated and was feeding him a lot of sweeter things like sweet potatoes and carrots, which they can have occasionally. But I fed him that. He got used to it. Now he has no taste for kale. Like, he literally won't eat kale. So instead of kale, I now feed him broccoli greens. Not this. Like, I will go buy broccoli greens, or I don't buy dandelion greens in the store, but you can. I usually just pick dandelion greens and feed those to him instead, and he actually really likes those. So that's kind of my alternative now, since he doesn't really like kale anymore, which is my fault, but whatever. He'll eat those, and that's, you know, whatever. It's the same thing. Moving on to substrate. This is really important, and something like his old substrate was essentially killing him. He had a sinus infection for months, and I finally took him to the vet. This was probably 1.5 years ago now, something like that. And she was like, he just has like dirt in his lungs. Like, your substrate is dry. It's like, man, I'm trying my best. But what I've now found, so I put him on newspaper for like a month. He healed up fine. He got a little injection. He's fine now. He's great. He hasn't sneezed or anything. No coughing, no sneezing anymore. He's essentially cured. It's very common for Horsefield tortoises to get sinus infections. So like, don't worry. Just take him to the vet. You can get it fixed as long as it hasn't been going on for like 6 years. So what I do now is I use much less soil. So my substrate is a mix of coconut coir and organic potting soil. It's like an 80-20 ratio of organic coconut coir to organic potting soil. I always use organic because he's very small. If it's not organic, it has pesticides in it. You don't want that because he's a little boy. You know, look how little he is. It's a little boy. I'm not going to give him pesticides. Like, they're going to act like he's a pest. They're going to, you know, he's going to die. So I don't give him any organic, I only give him organic stuff. So that's what I've been doing with my soil. I also keep a little spray bottle of water down here. So I spray it, and that's actually really great. I keep these cactuses in here. These are the only plants that I can keep alive in here. And it's nice to have them in here because it actually reminds me to spray down the substrate every once in a while so it doesn't get too dry. Moving on to his light. So he has the UV light. I've had this UV light for quite a while, and it's been going really well. You do have to replace your UV light every 6 months, regardless of whether it burns out or not. It probably won't burn out in 6 months, but you do have to replace it because it gets weak and it's just not ineffective after 6 months. You need to replace it. You have to replace the bulb, not like the whole thing. You'll remember from my old video or past 2 videos, I don't know how many videos I made on Boris. It's been a while. I had this very, very hot, bright light. And this one's adjustable. It's great. I'm going to try to turn it off pretty soon here because it just looks a little better in the camera, but it's obviously night, so I don't want to keep it on. Oh my God. My boyfriend is just fucking yelling all the goddamn time in his video game. It's so fucking annoying. It's midnight. Dear Lord. So I'm really sorry about that. Anyway, this light, you remember from my old video that the light was really hot, really bright, And that's like the biggest mistake of my life, caring for this tortoise, because I basically inherited the light fixture from his old owners, who were incredibly neglectful and downright abusive towards him, I would say. Terrible owners. And I kept like the type of light that they were using. Like, I obviously replaced it over the years, but I kept the light, and it was just way too hot. Horrible light. And I don't know, it's like they were obviously horrible owners. Why would I do anything that they were doing? But you know, you're dumb, you're stupid, you don't know. You think, well, I'll just use what they're doing. But it wasn't working. After switching to this light, like, I can't even express to you how different things have gone. He has been eating way more. He's been way more active. He's been able to sunbathe all day, sit in the light all day. He's been able to sit on this rock that he really loves. He loves this rock, and he's been able to sit on it and not get too hot. The substrate isn't drying out nearly as fast. It's great. So really, if you are going to invest in anything, invest in great lighting. That's really all you need to invest in. It's not a very expensive pet to have. I swear I probably spend maybe $200 a year on him. That's including all vet bills, all food, all lighting costs, all soil. Very cheap pet to have. Great pet. And interesting. The last thing I want to say is I do replace the substrate pretty regularly. When I replace the substrate, so once a month, every month and a half-ish, and I scoop it out pretty often. When I do that, when I replace it entirely, I always switch up everything in here. So like, I just put in this tampon box a couple weeks ago. He loves it. It's interesting, it's exciting, it's new, it's something new in the environment, and he can be stimulated in some way. It's always my biggest fear, is that he is bored and unstimulated in some way, and I just want him to be happy and stimulated. And you know, tortoises are very solitary creatures most of the time. Like, in the wild, they're living their entire lives. They don't like live in herds, you know. They live their entire lives very solitarily, aside from when they're coming out to breed. So like, people ask me all the time, like, isn't he lonely? No, probably not. It's, you know, you'd be alone anyway. But I do want him to stay like mentally stimulated, have things to climb on, have new things to explore every month or two. And so that's why I always change up the enclosure. Like, it looks different, it has different plants, it has different rocks, it has different boxes, you know, like a new piece of weird cardboard in there. And so I always try to do that when I'm, you know, doing something for him. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. I tried to keep it pretty short, but there was a lot of information to get out because I've learned so much over the past like 2-3 years, however long it's been since I've filmed one of these videos. And I'm sure there's still things that I'm messing up on. Please don't like come at me super angrily. Like, if there's something you don't agree with, like, I don't keep water in the enclosure. I give him water, but I don't keep it in the enclosure. And I know that's a point of contention for a lot of people. But it's just useless because he just walks through it. So I don't put it in there. So some people are on the fence about that. So if you have a different opinion, or if you have an idea for me, like, just tell me like civilly, and don't be super rude about it, because I would never intentionally do something that I felt was harmful to him. I would never, I don't want to hurt him, you know, like I already have an inferiority complex where I think that everything I am doing is totally inadequate for him. So you don't need to tell me. Like, if you have an idea or a genuine concern, like, just be civil about it. That's all I ask. And hopefully this was an informative video. He is, according to both me, my boyfriend, my friends, the vet, he is happier and healthier than he's ever been. I genuinely believe that. He is very active. He is sexually active as well. And you don't need to know how I know that. I just know it. With himself. He's sexually active with himself. And he's a good boy. So no need to be rude. And hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you're thinking about getting a tortoise, or you already have a tortoise, or you have more questions, I'm pretty good about responding to that stuff in the comments. So just ask and have fun with your tortoises. Peace.